Welcome to Me, an Astrology Podcast, where we explore astrology, tarot, psychology, and astrocartography. With your hosts, Roxy and Izzy, we dive into the connection between the stars and the self. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Me, an Astrology Podcast. I'm Roxy.
And I'm Izzy.
And this is episode 5. You are so much more important than your sun sign. So let's start there. Izzy, can you share a little bit about your perspective on the sun sign and maybe some of the stereotypical sun sign comments you've heard?
Yeah, so in astrology, when to me, the first thing people think about when they think about astrology and the zodiac is like their sun sign, because it's just, when you look at the horoscopes and the news and stuff and whatnot, like are on in apps, a lot of them will be actually based on your sun sign, which I think is not really that accurate. I think rising sign horoscopes are better, and I think most other astrologers will agree with that. Um, but yeah, it's also really funny how people kind of try to use the sun signs to debunk astrology. Specifically men, specifically heterosexual men.
Absolutely.
They will, I'm not saying all of them because I have had some heterosexual male clients and
Uh-huh.
you guys are awesome. Um, but they will use the sun sign to be like, oh, well, for example, they'll say something like, oh, well, Leos are supposed to be like this and I'm not like that. So astrology is BS. And it's like, well, do you know your Mercury? Do you know your Mars? Do you know your moon? Do you know your ascendant? Like, no. So maybe they don't understand that there's the whole chart. And that's what we're talking about in today's episode. That's the crux of today's episode, that there's so much more than just the sun sign when we talk about our birth chart in astrology.
Absolutely. Really, astrology is a holistic, thing. It's a nuanced thing where we have to look at sometimes hundreds of components and tiny details to really make sense of what the chart is trying to tell us. As you mentioned, absolutely the rising sign can give us a lot of information. And if you are looking at horoscopes, I would recommend, just like you said, to go for the rising sign. Um, but I wonder if, personally in your life, have you ever felt pretty misunderstood when people look at your sun sign?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm a Scorpio sun, and that already in and of itself kind of has like a bit of a negative connotation depending on who you're talking to. But Scorpio is really vilified, I feel, out of the signs. Like Scorpio, Gemini, I think also these tend to be signs that are very disliked. Um and I do embody some stereotypical like Scorpio traits, but I feel like I also definitely don't. Like I don't identify with like all the traits of Scorpio. And so I think, people will meet me and they'll ask what my sign is and I'll say Scorpio and they'll be like, "Oh, I hate Scorpios," or like, "I don't trust Scorpios," or like,
Ooh.
"I was burned by a Scorpio," or like, "My crazy ex was a Scorpio." That's the one I hear the most, my crazy ex. I do hear more negative things about the Scorpio men than
Mhm.
the women,
Mhm.
but nonetheless, yeah, I definitely think I've been like prejudged based on being a Scorpio sun, even though I don't necessarily identify with like all the aspects of that sign.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, me being a Pisces, and I do not resonate so much with the energy. Very often, when people only really understand the sun sign and they ask me what my sign is, I say Pisces. And I immediately realize that they're thinking, okay, crybaby, okay, sensitive, and I'm just not that way. With people who know astrology, I usually say I'm a Pisces, but I have an Aquarius stellium because I feel like if I just say I'm a Pisces, there's no resonating factor with who I am as a person.
Yeah, and it's not giving the full context of you or your like experience as a human.
Mhm.
So,
Absolutely. So today we are going to get into, various aspects to look out for in a chart, in your personal chart. How about we start with the big three? Now, we have done a previous episode on this when we have done a deep dive into the big three and what that might mean for your personality and your temperament. Today we can give a brief overview. Maybe we can start with the moon sign, Izzy. So if we look at the big three, tell me a little bit about why this is important and why you think we should look at it in the charts.
Yeah, I always say, and I think I did mention it in one of our last episodes when we talked about the big three, that for me, the first sign in the big three that I look at is the moon. Um, it's so important because it's our emotions, it's our emotional world, our emotional reactions, how we process things emotionally. Um, and so a person might have like a stereotypically quote unquote emotional sun sign, like a water sign, like for example, Cancer. But a Cancer with like an Aquarius moon or like maybe a Gemini moon may not be as emotional, quote unquote, as a Cancer sun who also has a Cancer moon
Right.
or has a Pisces moon. So I think it's really important to look at the moon sign because of that, because it really tells the story of the person's inner world and how they deal with all those emotions and feelings inside of them.
Mm.
Um, what do you think about the moon? Do you think it's the most important, or I feel like you like focus a lot on the rising too.
Absolutely. So I will say that, with the big three, just for those who aren't fully aware of it, the big three involves the sun, the moon, and the rising. We have mentioned how insignificant we feel the sun is, but I think it's important to note that, it depends on whether you have a day chart or a night chart as well. So if the sun is above the horizon, you have a day chart, and the sun might have more of an impact on you, your personality, and the way you think and feel. Whereas a night chart, which means the sun is below the horizon when you're born, you might resonate more with your moon. So I personally have a night chart, and I really resonate with my moon sign. But yeah, as you mentioned, the rising sign tells us so much about our life experience. Not only does it point us in the direction of our ruling planet, which is incredibly important in, what's important in our lives, what our lessons are here to learn, what our
Yeah, like
experiences
the
might be.
themes of our lives. Yeah.
Absolutely, right? The rising sign shows us which planets and which signs we have in each house, which indicate, the parts of our lives. Um, I mean, just going back to the moon sign a little bit, I was wondering if you felt like your sun sign or your moon sign connects more with the way you feel and the way you process emotions for you personally.
Mm, I honestly think both in my case. I do have a day chart. I was born at like 10, 11 in the morning. So, I really think both. I feel very influenced by my sun sign because it's also the same as my Mercury sign, which is very common. Not always, but it's very common.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I feel like the Libra moon in me craves balance, and when one thing feels off, I get really set off. And I think I talked about that in the last episode. Um, but I also sometimes, like as a Scorpio sun and a Scorpio Mercury, I think I sometimes have very extreme reactions to things. Like maybe not outwardly. The Capricorn wants me to be composed, but inwardly, it's like a field day. Like,
Yeah,
like
it's
it just
totally different worlds. The way
I'm just
we
like, oh my
interpret
God,
things.
I'm like, oh my God, I think like I'm internally dying. Like like I cannot
But on the
handle it.
outside, you're like,
I'm like, fine. Yeah.
everything is under control.
All three for me, I would say resonate equally. Like
Mhm.
I don't think I lean more into one or the other.
Mm.
But I know some people, I think yourself included, you feel like they definitely identify more with their moon or their ascendant or their sun.
Mm.
What in your case, what would you say?
Yeah, just building on your point of outward projection versus internal experience. Your moon sign very much indicating how you experience things on the inside. Your rising sign, I think, is one of the first things other people notice, especially in early encounters when you're just meeting someone, making introductions, giving a speech. Would you say that that's true for you, that the first thing that people notice is your rising sign?
Yeah, I would say so. I think being a Capricorn rising, like, um, I feel like we have this gift of being like naturally very composed and put together, even if that's not how we feel. And I'll be going through something like really difficult, and unless I openly say it and explain and like give my story, like people a lot of the time won't know unless they're very close to me.
Hmm.
So, I do agree that the rising sign can really like show a lot. It
Absolutely.
shows, it doesn't tell, kind
Yeah.
of.
Yeah, I think anyone who dives a little bit deeper into astrology, as we have as practicing astrologers and people who have studied it, even just reading about it online, you slowly start to realize this sort of whole chart philosophy. As we mentioned, the houses are going to be the areas of life, and then you've got the planets, and it's almost as if every planet has like a job or a focus in your life, right? So I think it's really important to focus on different parts and integrate them and realize that it is a holistic system. I wonder, when did you realize that your chart was way more complicated than, like, I'm just a Scorpio, for example?
While ago. Maybe when I guess right before I started studying astrology around maybe when I was like 19, because my friend showed me this app called Daily Horoscope. I still have it on my phone. Um, and from there, I just wanted to know more about astrology, so I just looked up like how to read my birth chart or something, and I found this website that I used to use. Now I don't really use it anymore, called Cafe Astrology. It's very like very good for beginners and it's very basic.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it gave me like an overview of my chart with like written descriptions and like my planets and my house placements and the angles and all of that. And that's when I was like, okay. I literally said to myself, I was like, this is gonna take me years to learn fully. And it did take like to really learn it and integrate it, it did take years.
I'm
And
still
I'm
learning.
still learning. That's the
Yeah,
thing. I'm still learning. Like,
absolutely.
I'm always like, investing in books and all of that. If I can, courses, like I'm always, yeah, you know.
Yeah, it's
And
an
what about
ongoing
you?
thing.
How old, like, when did you like figure out that you were not just a Pisces?
Probably from the moment I understood what a Pisces was. I just couldn't quite explain it until much later in life when, actually, shout out to an old colleague, Simon. He put my chart together. He had a basic understanding, more than a basic understanding, I would say. Um, and he pulled up my chart and he took a bunch of descriptions of all the planets and everything. And he gave me a document that he printed out. And I read it. And I started to realize how my Pisces sun and Mercury integrates with my Aquarius energy. And, Uranus in Capricorn in my first house is why, I have this sort of rebellious aspect, and my Sagittarius moon that like wants me to travel. And I started to realize that the bigger picture was quite resonant, very true to me. And I think because of my misunderstanding of astrology, it took me a while to get into it. I only really started studying and showing interest in it in like maybe my late 20s.
Yeah,
But
like it's kind of amazing when it all like clicks. Like
yeah,
for me, like I was just like, oh, um, why am I such a people pleaser? Like I feel like Scorpios aren't people pleasers. Like I was like, why am I like so concerned about other people? And then I found out that I had my moon in Libra and I was just like, oh my God, this makes so much sense. And then I started believing in it more and more.
absolutely. It's the sense of it's resonating. once it resonates, it's not even about believing anymore. It's or convincing anybody. It's like this feels true to me.
Yeah,
And
like
quite
it
a
clicks.
beautiful experience, right? Getting to know yourself. Okay, so as we mentioned, the planets are sort of the jobs and the roles in our energy, in our lives. Maybe we can chat a little bit about that. We can start with the personal planets, if you can kick us off with Mercury.
Yeah, so the personal planets kind of reveal like how we are in our dealings like day to day and our just the way we think, the way we react, like very like interpersonal. They very much are related to our interpersonal world and our interpersonal life. And so Mercury, is an interesting planet. It's very fast moving. It's not too big. And in astrology, it rules, or at least Western astrology, it rules over, communication, thinking, and the mind.
Hmm.
So in our chart, our Mercury sign and house placement, really reveal um, the way a person thinks and the way they process information, the kind of logic that they might apply
Hmm.
to once dealing with like different situations and conflicts.
Yeah.
Um, and so I definitely resonate with my own Mercury sign and Scorpio,
Mhm.
obsessive thoughts all the time.
Yeah, and my Pisces Mercury, I'm great with meditation, visualization, all of these things, an artist as well. So yeah, I resonate with that too. Another personal planet is Venus, and Venus sort of represents the way we love, the way we connect, not just in romantic relationships, but in friendships. I would say it also dictates or is connected to what we find as abundance, right? What we think is beautiful, how we make our money, how we spend our money, what we prefer to look at and be surrounded by. Is there anything you would add to that?
Yeah, I guess I don't know if you said it already, like attraction.
Yeah,
Like
what we're attracted to, for
what
sure.
we're attracted to, but also like how we attract others. Like what about us attracts others?
Mm,
Like a Venus and Scorpio, for example, like myself, like they might feel more attractive and attract more people when they're kind of like, into like dark, spooky things and witchy things and those kind of color palettes and stuff like that. I think it's a lot about attraction as well.
absolutely. Yeah. So if you're wondering why you're attracted to the same kind of person, why your friends are in a similar, I don't know, community or aesthetic or romantic partners, look to your Venus sign. There might most likely, and seventh house, most likely will be something there for you to explore in terms of your patterns. Mars is another personal planet, which is quite a fiery one. What would you say is the role of Mars in a person's chart?
Yeah, for me, Mars is like kind of a person's motivation, their drive, the way they go about taking action and kind of going after what they want. It's like the chase, it's like that pursuit,
Yeah.
something. And also the way that a person responds to conflict. So, like, an Earth Mars may not respond, probably won't respond to conflict the same as a Fire Mars.
Mm.
Fire Mars are more maybe instant. And Earth Mars might like have a more seething, what's that word? Seething anger and reactions that kind of are a bit more below the surface.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I also think Mars um, I feel like I made a video about this a while ago. Like to me, Mars is such an important planet because it's your energy, but not just like your energy amounts, like the amount of energy that you have, but also like I feel like a lot of it has to do with your aura,
Mm.
like the energy that you project. I really do believe that. I feel like I could feel a person's Mars placement and like more than other signs for sure. I
Oh,
really feel
that's
like I
actually a
can.
really good point. I honestly haven't thought about it that way before. But absolutely, yeah, the Mars sign, the energy comes through quite strong. And, just as you said, I think the Mars sign shows how we fight. It's our instinct. So, a fire Mars. Also the modalities. For example, don't ask me why, but I have spent a bit of time looking at the charts of UFC fighters out of curiosity, like what makes a
UFC
person
fighters,
do
really? I
this.
love that. I've never looked at their charts.
So you'll be surprised to see how many cardinal Mars there are. So there's obviously the Aries Mars, the
Oh yeah,
Fire
the
Mars,
stereotypical macho.
but
Yeah.
also Cancerians. So Cancer Mars, Cardinal Mars, Capricorn with that discipline. So it's quite interesting that Mars sign can be so valuable and so important in terms of the way a person's spending most of their days, how they're making money, and how they're moving forward towards their goals, which is another aspect,
Yeah.
how we move
Like
towards our goals.
yeah, like you could really sense a person's like the way they portray their confidence, the way they portray themselves through the Mars sign. You really can. I really believe that.
And how they argue.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you wanna win an argument, check out the person's Mars sign and see if you can get around it. Um, but then moving on to the social planets, for example, Jupiter, large, abundant planet. Really, I guess it indicates in your chart where you have a lot of growth, where you can get a lot of growth, where you can obtain amazing, lucky, out of the blue opportunities, for example, or where you might really go into something full heartedly. For example, it could be in my chart, it's in Virgo. I'm a very skeptical person when I move towards things, but it's in my ninth house. So it's very much in the pursuit of study. And I have had a lot of opportunity and abundance, which comes from the things I've learned, so the studies and the travels I've done, being in the ninth house. Um, what do you think about Jupiter as a social planet, what it means for a person?
Yeah, I think it shows a lot about where the person might have like hidden luck or hidden gifts,
Mm,
that they may not be so aware of at first, but I feel like it is like a slower moving planet, so it kind of may take time to realize like what it is that activates that. Um, but I think I mean, obviously, I really find that wherever Jupiter is in the chart and whatever sign it's in, it does tend to sometimes amplify those traits within us.
mm,
So like even if even if it's your only planet in Virgo, it like may give you some of those Virgo traits
mhm.
in your personality, in your case. In my case, it's in Scorpio, and I'm like, oh my God, I already have enough Scorpio. But it's in my case, it's in the 11th house, and I have a huge 11th house stellium, and I have found that my friendships, my communities that I'm in, like really nourish me on an emotional level, but also like have helped me get through everything, even with my business, like, you know, people referring me, um, wanting to like build businesses together, to build something together, like projects and stuff. I found that that's been a really big theme in my life. So I think where Jupiter's placed, it's like in your case, it's like travel, philosophy, expansion. In my case, it's I guess very much about like community and collectives, and like those have been very big themes in my life, like groups. Um, Although I may not always feel like I fit in them, it's just been a theme. Like I've gained a lot of growth from through my like communities and social dynamics, and
Mm.
also just benefits in general.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, is that, these social planets are very much affected by the planets close to them, the house that they're in, and the sign that they're in, as to where we're going to get those opportunities and those, moments of expansion or growth, as you mentioned. What about Saturn? How do you think Saturn shows up for people?
I think Saturn really shows where a person needs to develop more discipline and structure in their lives, where they may face some obstacles. A lot of people say that it's karma, and yes, it's karmic, but I don't think that's like the biggest theme necessarily of Saturn. I think it's really about like where a person may face obstacles, like whichever, especially the house that it's in. will show a lot of that, but also the sign that it's in will show maybe like the like it'll be kind of a like what is it? What's the word called? Yeah, like a bit like debilitated, right? So like when you have Saturn in a certain sign, you may have a bit of trouble understanding and embodying the qualities of that sign. Like if you have like for example Saturn in Capricorn, it's like developing structure and like routines and stuff like that might not come as easily.
Mm,
Um in my case Saturn's in Aquarius and it was hard for me to grapple with like my identity as an individual and like, wanting to fit in, but also having to accept that I'm just maybe very different from a lot of people. Like those Aquarius themes for me were a bit harder to embody, if that makes sense.
mhm.
Because it shows, yeah, what do you think? Do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I think in your particular chart, yeah, but in my case, for example, I have an Aquarius stellium. So my Mars and my Venus is in Aquarius. So I have that personal Aquarius energy already. But I would add to what you said, it's definitely where we need to learn more discipline, but with reward, I think. I think Saturn shows where if we learn the lessons and we are able to be disciplined in those areas, we will have long term benefits, usually with regards to work or with regards to, you know, things of material nature, like, because of that Capricorn connection with Saturn, there's this sense of our challenges, our goals, and our achievements in life, and how we can overcome that through discipline and through learning those lessons, and then achieving that long term benefit. Um, but
Yeah, a
moving,
lot of it is about mastery too. Like
yes,
kind of like what we're being called to develop and master
and
and
it
become
takes
really.
time to do that.
Yeah, and it takes time, it takes effort, it takes persistence. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. But moving on to the outer planets. So I do think it's important to note that the outer planets are very slow moving. They are generational planets, which means we do share planet signs with large groups of people. Therefore, it is much more important where it's placed in your chart in terms of house, what aspects there are to it, and what's actually, no, that's all I was going to say. So yeah, starting us off with Uranus. What do you think Uranus represents in a person's chart?
I think the area of life where we could really stand out and be very unique and innovate and do something different, where we might have the area of life where we might have a more alternative approach
Mm,
to viewing things like Uranus in the seventh house could show like that a person maybe has a really alternative approach to dating. Maybe they practice more non-monogamy, maybe you know what I mean? Um,
mm-hmm.
but also it could show where a person maybe experiences some degree of instability in their lives as well. I've seen a lot of clients of mine with Uranus in the third or fourth house with like either very unstable childhoods or just like maybe they had to move around a lot because of their parents' work or something like that. Um yeah.
Chaos. Yeah. Yeah, when I think of Uranus, I think of tarot, the Tower card. So what's often, I think, overlooked is that Uranus brings chaos where there are not sufficient foundations. So, those areas where you experience a lot of chaos or sudden changes or things falling apart might be connected to Uranus. But the next step is then building the foundations to replace the ones that have fallen apart. So it's a great tool, I think, in a person's chart to see where they need to make changes throughout their lives and where they need to embrace a little bit more flexibility in the name of growth, in the name of moving forward, not just because things fall apart, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
And
what's
then,
your take on Neptune? Sorry if I
oh
interrupt.
yeah, I was gonna say, what's your take on Neptune? Um, Neptune is an interesting one. I think it's one of the most misunderstood planets. Um, I'm still trying to like unpack Neptune, but I think a lot of it has to do with the area of life where we may lack a bit of clarity
Mm,
and truth and like groundedness. Where, like areas of life where there might be some, I don't want to say confusion, but like, yeah, where like we might have been deceived or confused or unclear about things. So it's about like, I think Neptune is teaching us where we need to gain more clarity, right?
hmm. Absolutely.
What do you think?
Yeah, no, 100%. It's kind of like that haze over everything. There's a little bit of gap in understanding what the truth of a situation is, depending on the house. For example, I think we both actually
Yeah,
have
in the
Neptune in
first.
the first house. So there can be a little bit of misunderstanding in the way we project ourselves, maybe in the way our physical body looks, our face looks. Um, but one thing I will say with Neptune is that there's opportunity for imagination. Because in that unknown feeling, in that haziness, there's room for our brains to create what we wish is there. So I think when it comes to like physical projection or aesthetics, there can be this sense of creativity in the way that we move through the world or the way we dress. If you have Neptune in the third house, ruling thinking and short-term travel and things like that, there can be a sense of creativity into those areas of our lives. Maybe the way we think has quite an imaginative or beautiful process. And the same can be applied, for a 10th house. Maybe we have a creative career. Our public persona is very much determined by what we create and our creative skills. So there is this unknown, very uncomfortable aspect to Neptune, and then this opportunity.
And there's also I want to add there is this kind of like I don't want to say impossibility aspect, but like it also rules like glamour and like it's almost like it rules over things that are not that don't seem real, that seem like
Mhm.
an illusion. And
Mm.
so it's like when we see like Neptune, it's in the first house and the 10th house, especially in houses that relate to like visibility, it's like the person can really change a lot throughout their lives and really change identities and kind of, really trying to put up my finger on it, but it's like it rules glamour, right? So it's like you sometimes see like I was reading about this in like some blog a while ago, like the what's her name? Ariana Grande has Neptune in the first house. And like if you look at her outfits, like her makeup, like all of it, it's so whether you like it or not, I'm not trying to give a critique of it, but it's just like so like very otherworldly. It's like
Mm.
this long, especially in the past, like this crazy long hair and these very high heeled boots, and like this very heavy makeup, and it's just like very like this ethereal kind of look, you
Yeah.
know, and that's
Even
very
now,
yeah, it's very
with the
Neptune. She
promotion of
changed a
Wicked.
lot, and her
Yeah.
image, she's able to really change her
Yeah.
style, and she's been accused a lot of like cultural appropriation and stuff because there is that. I mean, I'm not trying to blame it on the astrology, but like there is that element of like changeability in a person with that Neptune in the first house. And I see it in myself. Like I feel like I look at pictures of myself or videos from years ago and I'm like, that's me? Like I don't
Mm.
even recognize myself. Like my style, the way I'm acting, like it's crazy. There is that kind of fantasy, impossibility, like glamour, like type thing with Neptune going on, especially in the first house, the 10th house. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, what about Pluto? Pluto would be like our last generational planet. For me, Pluto's going to show you the area of life that you're probably going to go through the most changes, the most death and rebirth things, but it also, for me, shows the area of life where you can utilize your sexuality or your, inner drives and desires, to achieve something or to move through something.
Yeah, I think it really shows where we might undergo a lot of transformation, as we talked about in the Pluto episode a couple weeks ago.
Mhm.
Um, it really shows where we're going to undergo transformation, where we might experience, loss, but also gaining something new, which is, transformation in and of itself. It could also show where we might experience some power dynamics, some clashes, some, um, you know, it's a more contentious area of our life, I think, where Pluto's placed for sure.
Mhm. Yeah. And, to build on that, the place where we might find quite a bit of power if we learn how to utilize it. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So, as we mentioned, the planets are sort of the jobs and the roles within a person's chart. What about the houses? How about we go through them? What to look out for in your chart? What does it mean for you in terms of area of life? Maybe you can kick us off with the first house, Izzy.
Yeah, so the first house is obviously really important. I mean, they're all important, but the first house, it rules over like our identity and our sense of self. It's where the ascendant is found.
Mhm,
So, any planets, or luminaries, celestial bodies like found in that first house could really influence our personality, our appearance. They could even really taint the rising sign. Like
mhm.
they could make it kind of a bit more difficult for someone to pinpoint our rising sign. I find if someone has like heavy, like strong first house planets, it really,
Like Pluto in the first house, for example. I always think Pluto first house people are Scorpios.
yeah, or like Scorpio risings too.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think the first house, it's like the first thing you see. It's the self, it's the identity, the physical body, the appearance.
Hmm.
Um, so it's a very important one,
Yeah.
especially if there's planets in there, forget it. And we both have not personal planets. We both have outer planets in there, which is pretty cool.
I have my North Node there, so it does feel really personal. Um, but yeah, moving on to the second house. Second house would be, you know,
Money.
yeah, so putting it simply, I guess it would be finances, money, how we make money, how we spend money. But more in depth would be our self-worth. So
And values.
yes, so it definitely includes what we think is value, what we think is valuable about ourselves, and our personal values. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the third house, it really it's the house of communication, thinking, the mind. It kind of reveals, the sign ruling over it and planets in there, really reveal like a lot about the way we think and
Mhm.
how we process information. It's similar to the Mercury sign, but also it also rules like short distance travel, siblings, our local community. And that makes sense because it's like what our immediate environment is what we have on our mind the most, like the here and now. It's very, to me, I don't know if anyone else has called it this, but like to me, it's like the house of the here and now as
Hmm.
well. I,
Interesting.
I kind of identify with it in that way. I don't know if you do,
Mhm.
but yeah.
I have my sun and my Mercury in the third house. So the third house is quite strong for me in my chart. Even if I don't necessarily resonate with Pisces, third house aspects are something that I face a lot, which, thinking, my whole life has been about mastering things like meditation and, um, communicating, talking, reading, writing. These are all connected to the third house as well. But, then moving on to the fourth house, put simply, it's your roots. It usually indicates your childhood home, but throughout your life, it's going to represent your home, where you live, mostly the physical home, but it can also be your sense of home, what feels like home. It can also show, maybe early life experiences. So, what kind of home you grew up in, what kind of, authority figures did you have? Not directly related to the caregivers in your life, but certainly your experience of the caregivers in the home and how you grew up. Yeah.
Yeah. I would definitely agree. Yeah, the fourth house, and also like your ancestry,
Mm,
lineage as well. Is a big theme with that. And
yeah.
then when we look at the fifth house, this one encompasses a lot of things, all things to do with creation. So creativity, sex, children, as well as our vices, addictions. Um, and because that is something that is created, right? A habit has to start from something. You have to start doing something. Um, and so, and also just like pleasure, like enjoyment. The fifth house is a really interesting one because I think a lot of people don't talk about this, but I think a lot of the fifth house relates to balance. Like that we want to like enjoy ourselves and be happy and do the things that we love that bring us joy, but also like we can't get carried away.
Mm.
Um, so I
Yeah,
feel
like a
like
dominant fifth house person might be the person inclined to indulge a little bit too often, particularly if the moon's there.
yeah, yeah, the moon, even Jupiter I've seen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really.
Even in like food, right? Because you were talking about things you enjoy and indulging, and so like indulging in all sorts of things. But I've noticed that a lot of people, like with Jupiter, can indulge a little bit too much in food, and have that sort of relationship to work on throughout their lives. Yeah, so the next one would be the sixth house, which, it represents your work, your daily life sort of work. It involves your colleagues, people who work under you, for example. Um, of course, your health. So, sixth house rules the way we take care of ourselves on a daily basis, and that often shows up in our health, how we feel, our life force energy, how often we get sick, for example. And also, pets can rule your pets if you own any dogs or cats, and things like that.
Yeah, like to me, I think yeah, the sixth house is very much like about a lot about the routine,
Yes,
the
how you
day to
spend your
day.
days. Yeah.
Yeah, and like if you have a pet, that's part of the routine, right? And the
Mhm.
health, like if you have a regimen and all of that. And then the seventh house.
Mm. Dun
I
dun
I don't
dun.
I love the seventh house.
Yeah.
I feel like it also reveals a lot about it's as an astrologer, it's something I look at in very in depth. Um, it's partnerships, one-to-one connections, romance, committed partnerships. The fifth house also rules dating because it's the creation of a relationship, but the seventh house is where you really take that to the next level. More
Hmm.
committed relationships, business partnerships, marriage, all of that.
Hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of people, for example, if you have Saturn in the seventh house, it can represent some difficulty with your romantic connections, but it can also represent longevity, right? So, where your planets are, if you have any planets in the seventh house, can represent that. Um, it's not to say that if you don't have planets, I do want to mention this very briefly. If you don't have planets in a house, it's not to say that nothing's going to be going on there, right? What would your
Yeah,
house?
it's definite that yeah, that's definitely not
Okay.
true.
So I will say that, for example, in the seventh house, I have my south node, but I don't have anything else there. Do you have anything in your seventh house?
No.
Mm,
Mm-mm. In my relocated chart, I have more stuff in there, and that
mhm,
is it is where I met my fiance and everything. And so I do think planets can activate it, but it doesn't mean that you're never gonna
mm. And
meet
more
them.
likely, it's just that there's aspects to focus on within that part of your life. So perhaps if you have Venus there, you might have beautiful relationships, harmonious relationships, but you might also be called to acknowledge yourself and your own value and beauty within those relationships. So there's just different aspects to focus on. And if there's nothing there, then you can look at the sign and any, aspects to that house as well. But moving on to the eighth house. Eighth house is a really interesting one. I might need your help here a little bit, Izzy. But you know, fundamentally, I think the eighth house rules loss. It rules things that are taboo, um, things that are a little bit that need to be healed, but also things that are not really tangible and hard to express, like intimacy, what makes us feel, intimate with someone,
You have vulnerability.
vulnerability. It does
Vulnerability.
also represent shared resources, on a practical level, shared resources or debt. You can find those things in the eighth house as well.
Yeah, I like to look at it as the house of topics that everyone just wants to pretend don't exist.
Oh my God, yeah.
Like inheritance. Like you can't bring up inheritance at a dinner table, right? I mean, you could talk about someone else's inheritance, but not
Yeah,
like one in your family. Like, hey,
absolutely.
grandma, like, like
When you die.
when you die, you better give me all your money and not this idiot over here.
Absolutely,
It's
absolutely.
all the topics that people want. It's the house of what's hidden, what society wants to keep hidden. So like yeah, intimacy, like relations, like sexual relations. But on a deeper level, not casually, more,
Mm,
um yeah, the occult,
mm.
taboo topics,
Kinks,
inheritance, kinks,
kinkiness. Yeah.
um, sexuality, the subconscious mind. I mean, nobody, we don't, I mean, sometimes I wish I could read minds, but like who really wants to read other people's minds, right? Like, like so it's to me it's all the things that people want to pack away and keep hidden and pretend don't exist. And that's how I look at it totally.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What about the ninth house?
Ninth house is like very it's very like aspirational, I
Mm,
feel. It's like about our belief systems, our philosophies, learning, growth, travel. To me, the way I interpret it is it's like it rules experiences that serve as catalysts for growth, good or bad.
mm,
Our education, higher education, learning, exploring different religions and belief systems, philosophies,
mhm,
um, traveling. Those are all things that I think make us more well-rounded.
mm.
I think it's about openness.
Absolutely. Yeah. So then that would be 10th house next. 10th house really rules your career. It rules, your public persona, right? So I believe it also includes things like when you become a mother, when you get married, when you get divorced, all of these public expressions of who we are and our identity would show up in the 10th house, but it is very much more associated with career. So, what we do for work and any planets that we have there might show us literally what we do for work or what type of work we do, and how we come across in a public way.
Yeah, agreed. Um, it could show us a lot about the type of work we might do or that we might be drawn to and how we're perceived in the public eye and all that.
Yeah, public perception is definitely in the 10th house. Mhm. 11th house.
Yeah, I have a huge stellium here in Scorpio, so this is like for me, I feel like I've got a pretty good grasp on the 11th house. The 11th house is like your networks, your community, and as well as your hopes, dreams, aspirations, the things that you embark on to do. And I think the message of the 11th house is that you can't do those things alone. There's always other people, there's always moving pieces that
Mm,
are in the form of other people and community and not this and to me community doesn't have to mean like being in a group all together. Community is just like, having those ties to people, having those connections can really enable you to really achieve what you want and you can help others achieve what they want. It's altruism as well.
mm,
Um, yeah, I love the 11th house.
mm. Okay, so 12th house, which I have my moon here, so I also feel like
I
that.
have Mars here.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So the 12th house is, it's really the 8th house is what we want to keep hidden, and the 12th house, I think, is just what's hidden. So sometimes it is really difficult to access what's going on in the 12th house for us in our chart, it can represent our subconscious, you know. So if you follow psychodynamic approach, for example, in psychology, it's the parts that we can only access through dreams or through deep, deep self exploration. It can also be where our trauma is. If you know you believe that we hold trauma in our subconscious and it informs our actions, but again, without actually seeing what it is or knowing what it is and still informing the way we move through the world. It can also represents spirituality. Someone like me with the 12th house moon can be someone who is very spiritual, very internally connected. And again, with aspects like meditation, manifestation, things of that nature. But, in society in general, the 12th house also represents like prisons, jails, parts of society that remain hidden and can be difficult to access in terms of understanding or knowing what's going on there.
Yeah, it's like definitely the house of like the oppressed, the marginalized, like similar to the eighth house. I feel like there's a lot of parallels with the eighth house. It's like I'd say the eighth house is the themes people want to ignore and topics, and the 12th house is literally like the people that the society ignores.
Hmm.
And it's also the house of mental health. And it's so fitting that in our culture, like in so not just in our culture, so many cultures, like mental health is so either ignored in some cultures and just very trivialized. Um, I think the 12th house could shed a lot of light on that.
Mm.
I find a lot of clients of mine with 12th, like with strong 12th house placements, like do things like working in social work or NGOs, like aid, like for different countries, like human rights. Um, it's not surprising.
Yeah, with my moon in the 12th house, I spent a lot of my teens and early 20s wanting to be a psychologist or criminal psychologist working in prisons, for example. I've always felt that 12th house connection to prisons or, like you said, mental health institutions. So, yeah, it's very real that we can be drawn to those things when we have planets or things in our chart to indicate that way. Um, I'm curious though, on a personal note, do you have any houses in your chart that feel maybe more chaotic, dramatic, or maybe that feel really good?
I've got like so many things clustered in the 11th house.
Mhm.
So, like, I've got, yeah, Sun, Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, and Pluto all in the 11th house.
Mhm.
Um, and so for me, it feels very chaotic, the 11th house. I feel like I've dealt with a lot of themes of enmeshment in my life and like difficult, like lack of boundaries or like difficulty in groups or like group dynamics. Like I feel like for me, the 12th house, sorry, not the 12th, the 11th house feels messy. The 12th house feels messy with the Mars being there. Um, I've got some anger beneath the surface, but it's like showing it and accessing it is so hard, but I feel it in my body,
Mhm.
like somatically.
So, just for our listeners, what planets do you have in your 11th house? If you can list them for us real quick.
Yeah, I said them. Sun, Mercury, Venus, Pluto, and Jupiter.
Okay. Okay.
And I
Yeah.
guess
Do you got a lot going on there?
I don't know any house in particular that feels really good for me. None of them.
Yeah.
None of them, honestly, because it's basically all 11th house, and then I have one planet in the 12th, one planet in the 10th, and it's the moon. Moon in the 10th does not feel good. And my second house, I have Saturn. Like I don't have the best chart. Like I've accepted it. I don't have like a easy breezy cover girl chart. Like, yeah.
Hmm.
What about you?
Yeah, I would say that the sixth house would be my most chaotic. And I don't actually have that
Gemini
much going.
ruled. We both.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so hard. It's so hard.
Yeah. So a lot I've needed to be very flexible in my work because I've had a lot of changes, a lot of um Yeah, it's taken a lot from me. And I think the Gemini being there, it requires a lot of like communication and like, flexibility being that like mutable Gemini sign. And in my work, I've always had to know what I'm doing. I can't show up without knowing what I know. And luckily, I've been pretty good with that. But, it's taken a lot from me, my work life and my colleagues. Um, but I do have a really harmonious house, which would be my ninth house. I think because my moon ruler is the ninth house, Sagittarius, and I have Jupiter there in Virgo, and I know that Virgo is not happy in Jupiter, or Jupiter is not happy in Virgo, sorry. But for some reason, I've had just like the perfect, higher learning and travel experiences that have really informed my life. And most of them go really well in a flow state. I haven't had too many issues or hiccups while traveling, for example. And I've traveled to some really difficult places, but some not difficult necessarily, dangerous is what I wanted to say. So, even given that I've traveled to dangerous places, I've always been safe. And, with that Virgo kind of having that discernment and moving through those spaces really well, it served me well.
Yeah. I guess like my easy spot, I guess, would be maybe the 10th, being that it is ruled by Libra, and I feel like I've had such good relationships with coworkers and
Mhm.
like clients, students that I've worked with. Like it's very rare that there's like a drama. Like I hear these stories of people like at work with crazy bosses, crazy coworkers, like, you know, and I feel like for me that's never been an issue. So
Mm.
maybe that's one part of the chart where it's like things are good, you know.
Working well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so just in the spirit of, speeding things up a little bit, how about we go through the elements and the modes quite quickly? Just for our audience, we don't want we don't want another 2-hour episode, so we are trying to create boundaries on that. Um, so yeah,
Yeah.
so starting with the elements, Izzy, tell us what do the elements tell about a person's chart? Maybe you can tell us a bit about all three or all four, sorry.
Yeah, so we've got fire, earth, air, and water as our elements, and each one is very different. Some of them do have things in common, but fire, for example, that's fire is the element of Aries, Leo, and Sag. And fire signs, stereotypically they are known to be a bit more temperamental, more passionate, maybe more reactive, more reactive, like like quicker to react.
Yeah.
Um, but also maybe I feel like stereotypically they might get angry, but they could cool down just as fast. Whereas we look at Earth, for example, that's a different ball game. Earth is more grounding, more steady, more stable, a bit more calculated, very resourceful. Um, and if when we've got like an Earth Mars or an Earth Moon, maybe they may not pop off the way a fire sign might, but they might hold on for longer. Same with water, because water signs are labeled as the most emotional. I don't necessarily agree with that though, and you said you don't either. Um, but I guess that the analogy is like the waves come and you can't control how big they are and they kind of overtake you and they could be, I feel like water signs could be all consumed, but
Mm-hmm.
also very empathetic and intuitive
Mm-hmm.
because it's like think of it the way the water flows in
Mm.
a very natural way.
I'm very
Um,
often emotionally intelligent, actually, because of that
yeah.
experience.
And
Mm.
then what about air signs? What do you think? I'm talking about all three, all four all at once.
Yeah, no worries. I invited you to do exactly that. Yeah, I mean, I would just say that air is our intellect, the way we think, can be a little bit more detached, I would say. And in terms of, emotions, there would be a little bit more cold, collected, not necessarily as reactive, but incredibly communicative. So whereas Water signs might be more emotional, more feeling. Air signs might be more communicative and informing. Then you have the earth and the fire. So earth signs would be more stable, grounded, safe, whereas the fire signs are more expressive.
Risk,
Yeah,
risk taking.
risk takers,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
again, it really depends what planets you have in which elements, right? So if you have
Yeah.
Venus in a fire element, you're going to show those aspects in the way that you love and the things you enjoy and the things you think are beautiful. Whereas if you have, Mars in an air sign, then you're going to be more instinctually communicative and more detached and discerning, if that makes sense. I would also say discernment is connected to earth signs as well. I feel like earth signs are very discerning. They know what's good for them. They know how to take care of themselves.
Yeah, because they really, I feel like they know how to like cut the fluff very well.
Mm.
Like
I love that.
Like I feel like other signs might ponder more, like the water signs, they might ponder more, and the air signs too, because they're very mental, intellectual. They
Mm.
might intellectualize things. A water sign might feel it out longer, and whereas an earth sign just instinctually knows certain things.
Mm. And calculate.
Very, very good judgment.
Yeah, great judgment. Okay, so that would, then next would be talking about the modes. So we have three modes. We have cardinal, mutable, and fixed. Cardinal energy would be more initiating. Whereas, mutable is more flexible, more adapting, and then the fixed is more like stabilizing, like long term, able to commit to completing something. Yeah?
Yeah, like I think a lot of the cardinal signs, like, they're not a they're the types of people when I really think about like actually have a lot of cardinal friends because my rising and my moon are cardinal signs.
Hmm.
My sun is fixed though. So yeah, I wanted to add about the fixed signs. I think um they are very like unwavering, like very committed, very stubborn
Mm.
and rigid. Um, Mutable signs are more flexible, more adaptable, but also a bit more flaky,
Chaotic.
less reliable. And cardinal signs, I think, have a nice balance. I don't know. Cardinal signs, they may not finish what they start all the time, but the fact that they get it going, like getting started is the most important step. Because if you don't get started, you won't do anything, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But also, if someone has too much cardinal, they're insufferable. I'm sorry to say. But if you have a lot of cardinal energy and I tell you that I'm not feeling my best self and you tell me that I need to go run 2 kilometers, I will murder you. And it happens all the time. I feel like cardinal people think that initiating something is going to solve all your problems. It's just
Yeah,
too
they
much
think they
sometimes.
think like, oh, you just have to do something else altogether. And it's
Yeah.
like, maybe I don't want to do anything. Thanks. Like,
Yes. Especially if this is coupled with like Aries or like a lot of fire energy. Oh, too much fire and too much cardinal in a person. Bless you. Please take a little chill and stop telling people to go for a run. I'm calling them out. Okay, so tell me, on a personal note, what is your dominant element? And okay, yeah, go ahead and tell me that one first.
it is water.
Mm-hmm.
Actually. And my signature is Scorpio, fixed water, fixed water,
Mm-hmm.
Scorpio. Yep. I have so much Scorpio.
Is there any modality you wish you had more in your chart?
I guess mutable because I have some yeah, I have some cardinal. I do have a lot of cardinal and some fixed. I do have a little bit of everything though. I'm happy that I have a little bit of
Nice.
everything. I think I have a good balance.
Yeah.
You have a lot of fixed and mutable, right?
So I actually, we'll get onto the signatures in a little bit, but yeah, I have mostly air element and why can't I think of the word? Mutable. So mutable air. So
Mm.
Gemini is my signature, which makes a lot of sense. Okay, so moving on to the next part is about decans. So I'm sure you've heard that, Izzy, as you were talking about earlier, oh, a January Capricorn is different to a December Capricorn, or, a February Pisces is different to a March Pisces. So can you tell us a little bit about why that might be the case? As you're doing that, I am going to share my screen. Um, just give me a second. Well, go ahead. You can go ahead and start explaining. Let me get it ready.
So yeah, the whole reason why some people could be born under the same sign, but exhibit their traits really differently or just feel very different. Like for example, like Roxy just said, like a January Cap versus a December Capricorn, um, is because of decans. So decans are basically how the zodiac signs are broken up. And so what I mean by that is like when we look at the zodiac wheel,
Let me put it
each
up for you
sign
here to see.
each sign occupies 30 degrees. And so they're divided into three groups, 10 degrees for each part of the sign. And so basically the way the decans work is that the first 10 degrees are ruled by the sign itself. And then the next set are sub-ruled by another sign of that same element. And then same with the third. The third group is sub-ruled by a sign of the same element. So, for example, when we talk about, um, let's say, Gemini decans, you've got the Gemini decan, you've got the Gemini Aquarius decan, and the Gemini Libra decan. And so those born under the, Gemini decan are going to be more stereotypically Gemini. Those born under the Gemini Aquarius decan are going to be Gemini-like and also kind of mixed with some Aquarius influence. And those sub-ruled, sorry, by the Gemini Libra decan are going to take on also some traits of Libra mixed with Gemini. So this applies to every sign. So if you think of each element, like if you think of the sign and what element it's in, and then the other signs that have the same element, those are going to be the sub rulers for each sign. And so it's a big reason why um, people born under one period of a zodiac are different from those born under another period of a zodiac sign. So,
Mhm.
anything you want to add?
Yeah, I'm just noticing this chart that I have here isn't showing the signs, right? It's just got the planets.
No, it
Anyways,
is. It is.
where
Look,
is
it's
it?
right here. Like the second row from the center. Go to the center. Go to the very center.
Hmm.
And then right there, look, Aries, Taurus,
Yeah, but
Gemini.
I mean each decan. It's not showing like,
Ah,
Aries. Anyways, it's not a big deal.
anyway, yeah. Oh,
I just wanted to mention that this is a random chart that I got off the internet. It's by John Michael Allen. Whoever you are, thank you. I love it. I picked it because it was the most beautiful. But yeah, you can get a lot of charts like this online. You can check out based on the degree of your rising or the degree of the planet. It will tell you a little bit more about how that's going to be expressed in your life and in your personality. For example, Izzy, we're both Capricorn risings, but I think that our expression, our outward projection of ourselves is quite different. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
yeah, so I was born I'm a Capricorn rising at 1 degree. So I was born right when the rising sign shifted to Capricorn from Sag.
Hmm.
And so that makes me a Capricorn rising. Like I'm born under the first decan of Capricorn when we refer to the rising.
Hmm.
Um, but and so that makes me like take on very like stereotypical like Capricorn traits with my rising sign. And I definitely do feel that. Like I don't feel really connected to the other earth signs when it comes to my rising sign. It feels like just very plain Capricorn. Whereas you, I think, are born under the Taurus one, the Taurus decan, the Capricorn Taurus, which is sub-ruled by Venus.
Hmm.
And so, how would you say your experience has been with that, being born under that decan as opposed to one of the other ones?
Yeah, so I think, with Capricorn, it has its own sort of, traits, which I think I definitely relate to. There's a certain like sharpness when it comes to, Capricorn features, for example. Whereas with that Taurus decan, I think I have a little bit more of a softness or a gentleness, especially to my features, because this is the first house. And there's that connection to sensuality, which very much connected to our fifth house, which is in Taurus as well. So I think it shows up for me very much in, Taurian things, liking, um, having a lot of sensory pleasures, for example, and being very much governed by those sensory pleasures and desires. Also being able to relax, I would say, is connected to that Taurus decan. A
I
lot
know.
of
I feel like I can't relax.
Right. So being a Capricorn, you're probably like a lot more like switched on and like
On all the
active.
time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
with my
Cardinal
Taurus,
energy is huge. Yeah.
right. With my Taurus decan, I think at least I come across as more chill, more relaxed, even if I don't feel like it, and even if I'm not actually, I think I have that outward expression of the Capricorn energy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
hmm Yeah, so I think the decans really, it's kind of one of those details in astrology that, yeah, it can help in your understanding of astrology, but it is a small detail and it can be used to describe why, certain people with the same signs, or in our case, same rising sign, can still express so differently. Um, Okay, so next, I'm going to stop sharing here. Next would be the chart signature. So we did mention this briefly, and I'll tell everyone a little bit about how you calculate that. First of all, you can go on astroseek.com, type in your birth details, it will do it for you. But mainly it's just looking at the main element and modality in your chart, and the sign that fits that is going to be your chart signature. We say that this is kind of, your sort of overall energy, your overall flavor, I know you mentioned Mars being the aura, but I think the signature can also be very much your aura, how people feel you, how people see you as a whole. For example, as I mentioned before, my dominant modality is mutable and my dominant element is air. So I have a Gemini signature, which probably comes across as, very changeable person, very communicative, likes to study, likes to read, knows a lot about what I want to know about. I'm not going to say everything because that's not the case. Um, a sense of energy to me in terms of, how many hobbies I have, how many things I do. It very much makes sense to me. Now, Izzy, I know you mentioned that yours is a fixed water, which puts you in
Yeah.
Scorpio, which is also your stellium. So it can be hard to sort of differentiate the signature from the stellium, I'm sure.
For me, yeah, like being that I just have so much Scorpio and then
Mm.
knowing that that's my signature, I'm like, oh, well, it's
Mm-hmm.
not like a big like revelation for me, really.
Mm.
But I definitely identify with it being fi the fixed nature. Like, I mean, it's weird because I feel like I'm a very flexible person, but like I might, what's the word? I might concede like easily. Like I might give in. I think that Libra moon really is so strong in my chart.
Mm.
It's at 2 degrees, which is also Venus ruled. That's probably why.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I feel like that Libra moon is the only thing making me like more flexible, more willing to kind of go along with the plan because I do feel like there are moments where I'm like very inflexible and I don't realize it, but I'm like, oh, I'm being kind of difficult, you
I
know?
mean, given that it's water, would you say that it's more like when it comes to your emotions. Like you don't play about how you feel and you don't let things go
Yeah.
easily, maybe?
Oh, yes, exactly. Like I'll be very flexible about plans or where to go, what to do, but it's like I'm a bit like picky about like who's involved.
Hmm.
Okay, if this person's there, they don't make me feel good, I'm not interested.
Hmm.
Whereas some people could just shrug it off and be fine. And I guess the fixed water is like, no, like
Yeah,
gonna clash with you emotionally and all of that.
absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so we are both astrologers. We've studied it, we practice it, we see a lot of clients. So maybe we can talk a little bit about our approach. What do we look at first in a chart? What comes up as super important to you?
Hmm. I look at several things first. Um, I guess for sure, like I said, the moon.
Hmm.
The moon is going to tell me a lot about how a person is emotionally, how they process their emotions, like how they emotionally react. I'd say I look at the moon, Mars, because it's like to me the Mars is a lot about the aura, the energy, um, the way that they anger, that they get angry, the way that they fight for what they want. The fighting spirit is really important. Obviously the sun. I more than the sign though, like I look at the decan always, and the house that the sun is placed in.
Mm.
Um, I also look at the seventh house because a lot of clients really want to know about love and relationships.
Hmm.
So by default, you know. What about you?
Yeah. Wait, I wanted to add to something you said and it just left my brain. Um, Yeah, the sun, the placement of the sun. That's such a good point because I think as much as the sun sign itself doesn't give us that much information, where it's placed can show where we have a lot of like drive, and like connection.
Visibility,
Yeah,
where we
that's
might be,
important to us.
where we might be kind of transmitting that sun sign energy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, so of course it depends on the client and what they've come to me for. Like you said, a lot of people want to talk about love and connection, so I would focus on the seventh house, eighth house as well as the fifth house, first house, and second house when it comes to love. But if I'm just blind reading a chart, the first thing I'm going to notice if there are any stelliums, where those stelliums are in the chart will show where there's focus, where there's intensity, depending on what planets are there, might show what difficulties, what's harmonious, what's easy. So the first thing is the stelliums. Then I focus in on the rising sign because I want to know what is the chart ruler. Are you Pluto ruled? Are you Saturn ruled? That's really going to show, who you are as a person, but also what are you here to do? Like what is your life really? What is the major energies and themes going on for you in your life, right? And then also because, looking at the rising sign, we can look at the angular houses, which of course is the first house, the rising sign, fourth house, the seventh house, and the 10th house.
Oh, I look at those always, especially with astrocartography.
Yeah, right?
So those shift and then that changes a lot.
Right. And it's really going to show you like where you have a lot of like major influence or what major influences are on you, right? Fourth house, first house being very personal and like, early childhood, maybe what you might have experienced. Seventh house is going to show, how you connect, and the 10th house is going to show who you are publicly. So this gives a really great picture of a person right off the bat. And then, of course, and I'm sure you look at this too, would be the major aspects. So I first look at the conflicts, right? I want to look at the squares.
Look at squares first too and conjunctions because conjunctions could go either way, but they're very influential.
Right. For example, in my case, I have Venus and Saturn in a conjunction in my chart in my second house. And I also have Mars there. So it's a very interesting conjunction. If someone just looked at Saturn, they would tell me, "Oh, you have a hard time with money, da 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 da." Da. But if you look at Venus and Mars there as well, there's a balance, a harmony coming into those themes as well. So yeah, conjunctions for sure, squares. So where planets are squaring each other is where you might find like conflict between two ideas, two feelings, two ideologies, two experiences. And as an astrologer, I try to find that midpoint, how can we find balance between these two? Because that's when you can start talking about like how to deal with some of those difficulties and conflicts. Um, Also oppositions. So oppositions can really show where someone is
Class.
either very imbalanced or very balanced, is what I've seen. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that too.
Yeah. And where they might fight themselves, where they might have a lot of conflict, either in their lives, depending on where the opposition is, um, or in their experiences, where they might have conflicts and issues. Um, but yeah, strong planets, looking at themes of life that are really, um, highlighted on the chart, where there's a lot of concentration of planets, and things like that. So, quick question for you though, Izzy. What would you say is one of the strongest placements in your chart? Ah, that must be a really hard question though.
No, I mean, I can
Yeah?
answer. Like I said, the Libra moon, very strong. I feel like it really, I feel like if I didn't have it, I would be very different. Like that need for balance, that wanting to kind of maintain, um, harmony in my relationships, even if even if that shouldn't be what I'm doing, because maybe the person or the situation is not great for me. And I mean, I've gotten better with that, but I think the Libra moon and oh, my second house Saturn in Aquarius in the sign too, like the Aquarius, like I feel like I didn't start feeling really fulfilled career-wise until I started really working, like
Hmm.
becoming self-employed, and that's a huge theme with like Aquarius second house, like alternative work, working online, doing something really original, really that was really personal to you. Um, and I think that is really stood out for me, and also just like having a bit of trouble, difficult relationships with a bit of a difficult relationship with money and all of that. Working on my mindset with that, and also Jupiter in the 11th house. I think like I've been really blessed to have a lot of friends from all walks of life, all over the world, and that I managed to keep in contact with, and a lot of people get surprised when they hear that. So I'd say those are my top three. My Saturn in the second house in Aquarius, my Jupiter in Scorpio in the 11th. So yeah, like the genuine friendships. I think that's a big Scorpio theme, not like fakeness and all of that. And then the Libra moon for
Hmm.
sure, I would say.
Hmm.
What about you?
Um, it's funny. In my earlier days, I think I connected so much to my Sagittarius energy. I have a Sagittarius moon. Um, but as I've gotten a little bit older, I think more and more in my, Saturn Saturn placement, sorry, which is Aquarius, Saturn, and I got Mars and Venus there, and then my Capricorn rising. So Saturn ruled. Definitely becoming more Saturnian as I get older. And I would say these are my strongest placements. If you had to ask me to, summarize my chart, I would say I'm a mix of Capricorn and Aquarius, which similar to Scorpio, a lot of people will go, ouch, but it's definitely something I'm growing into and I'm learning to love. So definitely strong for me.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yes. So, just I guess we're coming to the end of our podcast, episode 5. And basically, I guess just to sum up, I would say, stop just looking at your sun sign. Check out your whole chart. If you don't know your chart, go on AstroSeek or one of the millions of free online platforms there are out there. Check it out, read what they have to say for each planet, and integrate all of that into your understanding of who you are from the perspective
They
of
or they could just
astrology.
or they could just book a session. They could book a
Or do
reading.
that.
Yeah, it's
Please.
gonna be better than those online interpretations. But those some of those online interpretations are a good start, I would say. They're
Yeah,
a
that's
good.
how I started.
Yeah, it's how I started too, and I'm glad I did
Hmm.
because if I had nothing to work with, I don't think I would have ever gotten that into it. if I had nothing
Right.
initially.
Right.
But yeah, no, guys, like read your chart, learn your chart. It's not only the sun sign, just because you don't feel like a Leo or you don't feel like a Pisces, doesn't mean that astrology is a lie. Yeah, keep it all, it's all integrated. It's all part of, like, all connected. That's the word, all interconnected.
Yeah. And I want to also add, and I know that you feel the same way I do, Izzy, is that, astrology is so nuanced and so open to interpretation that it's really hard to say you're one way because of an astrology placement, a planet placement.
Because they
Um,
could all manifest in different ways. Like all the signs, all the planets, like all the houses have different traits and qualities and characteristics. Like you might get some of those from a sign or whatever and not another one. So it's like, it's
Absolutely.
really interpretation.
Exactly, exactly. And integration, right? So understanding any of those planets in isolation, it can inform you of something, but it's certainly not the entire picture. It's one part, one chapter, or one insignificant aspect. Altogether can give you a lot more information. Um, yeah. So, I guess we're gonna finish up there. Yeah, Izzy, is there anything else you wanted to add before we finish?
No, yeah, I think that's a wrap.
All
Thank you.
right. So remember, guys, check out your chart, book a reading, whether it's with Izzy, me, or anybody that you feel good and comfortable with. Stay tuned for some next episodes where, as today we mentioned the houses and the planets. Our next episode will be an in-depth study and discussion on those planets, and then the following one will be an in-depth study of the houses. So tune in for those. And also comment below something. Comment your ruling planet. Tell us if you have any
Yeah,
stellium.
come on. We don't want crickets. We want comments.
Yes, please. Anyways, thank you so much for being here today, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Me, An Astrology Podcast. We hope our insights inspire you to explore your own path. Join us next week as we dive deeper into the cosmos with Roxy and Izzy.